In a hierarchy, every employee tends to rise to the level of their incompetence. This is a quote from the book, The Peter Principle, written in 1969 by Dr. Lawrence Peter and Raymond Hill. The Peter Principle concludes that over the course of time, every position is filled by incompetent people. They go on to say that in time, every post tends to be occupied by an employee who is incompetent to carry out their duties. The book is partly satirical, which explains some of the very direct language used by the authors, Peter and Hill, to describe people. Today, I'm going to talk about what this means in relation to technical people, their career paths, and the teams they work in over the course of time in an organization that has a traditional approach. We're also going to have a look at how this is overcome using a modern approach. It's an approach that I use myself with my people in the AWS practice at version 1. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great time today at the Dynamo 22 event. I'm sure there's a lot of returners here and first-timers. I'm a first-timer myself, so this is all new to me. My name is Sat Gander. I'm the AWS practice lead for UK and Ireland at version 1, where we deliver technical solutions to customers across the globe. I personally lead a large technology practice or team responsible for delivering all things AWS and cloud. And the practice includes many AWS architects and engineers at various stages within their career. One of my many responsibilities is to make sure our people excel in their roles so they can excel as a practice and therefore excel at serving version 1's customers. And one of my key objectives is to provide a team structure and environment for my people to develop and thrive. So let's have a look at how the Peter Principle would apply in a technology setting using a traditional career trajectory of a fictional DevOps engineer called Amara. Amara starts off life as an associate DevOps engineer and gets very good at what she's doing, which is technical cloud engineering work. She quickly progresses through the ranks and gets promoted to a DevOps engineer, which is a mid-level role. When Amara becomes excellent at being a DevOps engineer, she gets promoted to a senior DevOps engineer. As Amara is progressing through her career, she is fundamentally doing hands-on technical works and getting more and more advanced at that. She's absolutely fantastic technically. Every time she gets promoted, it's because she's doing excellent at her current role. And it's important to note that I'm using the word current. She's doing well at her current role and not the role she's been promoted into. The senior DevOps engineer is the most advanced role that involves technical, hands-on work, which is available in the organization. Amara starts experiencing issues because she's an absolutely fantastic senior DevOps engineer, but when she gets promoted into a technology or people manager role, issues are occurring. And up until now, Amara's only been responsible for her own career, and she's been 100% technology focused, but now she's got a people management focus. In her new role as technology manager, Amara has to attend more meetings, has to communicate more, and has to motivate people that have different drivers. Amara has to serve and be responsible for the people she manages. This is a significant shift from her previous technology roles where the bulk of her jobs were pure technical hands-on work. Amara now feels overwhelmed and out of her depth. She's performing poorly in her new role, and she never really considered herself a people person. She hates sitting in meetings, constantly communicating and leading people. It's at this point, according to the Peter Principle, that Amara has reached her level of incompetence. She has reached her career ceiling and is unlikely to be promoted again. Good followers do not always become good leaders. Now, had Amara refused her promotion, it may have been looked upon unfavorably by her technology organization, it's not an easy thing to do. Senior management may have asked the question, why does Amara not want to be promoted? Which reasonable person would not want to advance in their career? It's a situation that may have impacted Amara negatively if she had remained in her role as a senior DevOps engineer. Now, with the traditional approach, the managerial promotion would normally be considered part of the same career path. It's considered moving up. In reality, it should be considered to be a career change. If anything, it's a lateral move. Now, we're in a situation where Amara is unhappy, not in a position where she's able to effectively lead her people. If this were to be scaled up to many senior DevOps engineers being promoted into many managerial positions, what you have is an entire organization made up of mediocre leaders. Extrapolating that out, you can imagine the impact that would have on an entire organization, on the people above and reporting to that technology manager. So let's have a look at how this situation could be avoided. What could have been done? There are a number of ways to prevent this situation. I previously spoke about Amara getting promoted to a future role by being excellent at her current role. One of the first things we could check for or do is for Amara to be promoted to a role only after partially or fully doing it for the period of time. An approach is for Amara's manager to speak to Amara about her career aspirations. If Amara had expressed a desire to become a technology manager, she could have been given adequate training, clear guidelines, and support to head in that direction. This would allow Amara to become familiar with the managerial side of things, but also show Amara's managers that she is capable of performing the role. By having regular check-ins, meetings, reviews with Amara and her manager or one-on-ones, Amara's manager would have understood where Amara's strengths lie and how she could progress in her career. There should have been an option for Amara to move back to a technical role if she was unhappy or not performing well in her current managerial role. And having clearly defined and communicated career tracks would have helped Amara understood where she wants to head in her career. By having a number of career paths, Amara can choose the direction of her career. An example of two career paths at a tech company is shown in this slide. What you can see here is a technical track and a managerial track. The advanced technical track has roles commonly known as an independent contributor or an IC. The advanced managerial tracks has roles such as the technology or people manager, and I want to deep dive into these roles over the next few minutes. An independent contributor or IC is part of the technical track and provides a route to continually move up technically without having managerial duties. Of course, they will have a manager themselves, and the role helps to remove the managerial barrier that's in place in a lot of organizations where technical people hit ceilings. The independent contributor is measured by the contribution they have to the organization and will perform duties such as providing deep expertise in a specific domain, working across multiple engagements and customers, interacting with partners and vendors, and helping with marketing, recruiting, and even doing talks at conferences just like this. The tech industry, in my opinion, tends to be more progressive than many of the other industries, and it's been fairly quick to adopt the technical or IC track in many of the newer organizations, or modern organizations, I should say. Let's summarize the role of a technology manager, which I've spoken about in the last 10 minutes or so. The technology manager is more involved in the organization, whether that be a day-to-day or a long-term basis. The technology manager communicates a lot. A big portion of their day and my day is involved in meetings on various aspects regarding either the technology, the organization, its people, or its customers. They're responsible for people's careers, and that includes helping them progress, regular check-ins and reviews. They are also responsible to the day-to-day, the tasks and the work that's allocated to people. They're typically less hands-on when it comes to technical work, and management will take up the bulk of the day. There's also a hybrid type technology manager role, one that many of my people perform in my AWS practice at version 1. This is where people are technology managers or people managers and still spend most of their time on technical projects being hands-on. They spend a smaller proportion of their time in managerial roles tending to their people. This is achieved by limiting the maximum number of reports to approximately 6 people, whilst providing them frequent managerial and technical training. Using this model, it means my AWS practice scales more vertically than it does horizontally because of the limit applied to the number of reports to the technology managers. Another technique that I use to develop managers is the shadow manager role. And this is where I will allow future managers to shadow me in developing people for a quarter. They will attend every one-on-one session that I have with a report and get involved in their quarterly or annual reviews. If the shadow people manager determines that this is something they actually like doing, I transition that particular person from my direct reporting line onto the shadow, where they are now promoted to a full technology or people manager. So let's have a quick look at what that structure looks like. Well, what a structure looks like. So on this slide here, you can see an example of a team or practice structure. What you have is DevOps engineers reporting into technology managers, independent contributors reporting into technology managers, and technology managers reporting into technology managers. Of course, the technology managers might be fully managing people or have a hybrid role, such as the one that I discussed on my previous slide. One of the most important concepts on developing high-performing people and teams is to plan and execute a clear team design and provide them an environment to thrive in. By building an environment that enables the development of your people, you will see a significant increase in their performance and therefore the team's performance. What you can see on the screen right now on this slide is one of the models that we use at version 1 and one that's definitely used in my practice. It's based on some research published by Dr. Richard Hackman of Harvard University in 2004. And it's a model that revolves around 5 clear concepts which should be defined for all high-performing people and teams. And let's just deep dive into this team design or model in more detail. So starting from the top, let's go around this circle and kick off with team purpose. What we need to do is ensure that the team has a clear purpose and direction, a clear vision. Everybody in the team should know what they do and what they offer, whether it's internal or external. The team should have clear paths laid out for them, so they know what to do when they get more and more experienced. They should also have the ability to switch between tracks should they be so, whether that's technical or non-technical. Moving on to clear boundaries. All teams should have clear boundaries. The team needs to be stable and long-lived. They should have an independence on each other or a reliance for various activities. They need to clearly know who does what task and when. They need to have communication methods that are used by everyone within the team, and having clear documentation or team APIs makes it easier. These team APIs describe the team services internally and to external parties. Moving on to team structure. I've covered a lot of this in the previous slides at a very high level. It's one of the most important concepts of team design. The team needs to be structured in a way that supports the team's purpose. It's always better to structure the team to have a level of autonomy and can produce the bulk of activities to meet its goal while being loosely coupled and having low dependency to other teams. This will mean that the team should be fairly autonomous and made up of multifunctional and multi-skilled team members. Moving on to organizational support. This is where wider support is provided to people and team members by either the technology manager or the organization itself. It helps to reduce the cognitive load, meaning that people can focus more on their mission tasks and less on tasks that they do not specialize in but would ordinarily be required to do so. The organization support could come in the form of encouraging well-being, having personal employee support, clear processes to facilitate timekeeping and holidays. And having the right technology in place to support the team and the individual is vital. Training. This is one of my personal favorites and one close to my heart. I'm a big believer in training, learning, and development. A focused training plan ensures that people and the teams that they reside in develop at an astonishing rate. Training within technology teams can be categorized into two main types: technical and non-technical. Both are equally important when it comes to the well-roundedness of an individual. Non-technical training includes topics such as communicational skills, managerial training, etc. And technical training will include training on whatever their technical roles involve, such as AWS architecture or sysadmin or engineering. One of the main jobs for technology managers is to ensure this full team design is in place to create favorable conditions for their people and their teams to thrive. A lightning feedback loop. Feedback for me is personally an untapped area when it comes to high-performing people and teams. I don't think organizations do enough of it. They don't listen to what their people are saying, and they aren't looking at areas such as team metrics to determine the delivery output or even their happiness and well-being levels. To know that you're on the right path, it's vital that feedback is solicited, not just once, but on an ongoing basis. And it's important that that feedback is actioned upon. Being able to measure qualitatively and quantitatively will allow you to understand just how much feedback and responses to feedback is performing. It's only with feedback that you can determine if you should do more of what you're doing, do less of what you're doing, or just to simply fail fast and move on. So coming towards the end of this talk, let's summarize very quickly what we've covered. So started off with the Peter Principle, which concludes that incompetent people reside in senior roles because people are promoted based on their ability in their current role. Our engineer, Amara, started off life as an associate DevOps engineer. She was then promoted all the way up to becoming a senior DevOps engineer, and this path had all been related to her technical skill set. When Amara was promoted from her senior DevOps engineer role into a managerial role, she was not great at it and didn't enjoy it. Good team members do not necessarily make good leaders. And at this level, because Amara was not performing well, it impacted the people that she was responsible for, and this led to the creation of a low-performing team. Essentially, what had happened was that Amara had a career change and not a promotion. There are a number of ways in which this situation could be prevented, and that's to ensure that Amara was partially performing at the role she was about to be promoted into before she was actually promoted. Regular feedback with Amara and her manager to understand what her desires and where her skills lie would have helped significantly. Having clearly defined tracks to allow for Amara to stay technical or to become managerial is vital. The ability to switch between tracks when an individual is not performing well significantly helps the people that are reporting to managers or the individual itself. Providing training, whether it's technical or non-technical, is vital, and having a team or practice structure in place to harness the skills and desires of people so that they can perform effectively would have been useful in preventing that situation. Having technical career paths removes ceilings for individuals. Some example tracks that I spoke about were the managerial track, the independent contributor track, and the hybrid track, which we use at version 1. We talked about having a suitable team structure in place to allow for tracks to report into a manager, and I went on to talk about the importance of team design, covering 5 core components to have a successful team. Finally, the use of feedback is important to understand how successful the individual and the team are performing. Now, we can't finish up without knowing what happened to our lovely engineer / technology manager, Amara. Well, everything turned out amazingly for her. Of course, she joined the AWS practice at version 1, where she took on a hybrid engineer, a technology manager role. She actually got much better at managing people by undergoing training and development, and she got to continue her first love, which is technical hands-on work. From there, she lived happily ever after. Okay, so all of this is not easy. Nothing is ever easy when it comes to developing your people and teams, but not having strategies in place to develop them is only going to result in levels of incompetence at very senior levels. Thank you very much. That brings me towards the end of the talk. I've finished a little early there. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. I don't think we have. Okay, and just for everyone's information, we are hiring. I am hiring in the Northeast, so if anyone's interested in joining version 1, please let me know. And we're finishing early, so I guess you get a longer lunch. Thank you very much.